This is Talk Sports Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. The big game is tonight, of course, live right here on Talk Sport, England versus Germany. I know one man who's going along to it, and he is sitting right next to me here, Mr. Mike Porky Parry. A very good morning to you and welcome.
A very good morning to you, Mike. Great to be here. It is, pretty historic day, really, for English football in the sense that we're playing the Germans.
Yes. But it should be an exciting night, but I can't get quite as excited as I should be, I don't think.
Well, no, maybe not. But, I mean, you have made the point in the first hour of your show that, any game against Germany is usually an historic one. I looked at some facts and figures before I came in tonight, Mike. I didn't even realise that until 1968, Germany had never beaten us. And they've beaten us almost on every occasion since, you see what I mean?
Apart from that 5-1 victory in Germany, right?
Which I was at. The four classic games against Germany, I managed to be at. I was at the one in Germany when we won 5-1. Yeah. I was at the one at the quarter-final of 96 when we went out on penalties. I was at the last one at Wembley when Dietmar Hamann scored that goal. Yeah. We lost 1-0, Keegan resigned, and I was at...
you were in the one in South Africa.
I was in South Africa when we lost 4-1, absolutely.
So you weren't at the World Cup final that England actually won in 1966?
No, I went to the FA Cup final that year, but not the World Cup final. Right. Both at Wembley, obviously. Everton overshadowed by the World Cup final a month later.
Dietmar Hamann, who's on TalkSport a little bit later on today, is having a go at Andros Townsend in the back of the Express. I'm not quite sure what he's saying about that, because I think Andros Townsend's a breath of fresh air, isn't he?
I think he's an absolute breath of fresh air, but Dietmar Hamann's got some very odd views as well, looking at the papers over the weekend. He's living here in England, didn't he? And has become very Anglophile, hasn't he? Anglicised and that kind of stuff. And yet still thinks we're some sort of mysterious nation, in the sense that he thinks we should have achieved better and our setup is not as good as it could be.
Well, he played so much of his football here, I suppose he feels that he knows about English football and he thinks that it should be better. And it should really be better. I mean, England have underperformed internationally for decades now.
But again, you see, you look at the figures because, I do a lot of research for a communist show, Mike.
I've
so
noticed
I want to be able to keep up with you.
People
you know what I mean?
There's usually a whole flurry of emails that come in after you leave, pointing out the errors that you've made over the course of the show.
Oh, that's very nice, isn't it? Well, let me just tell you this. For instance, 66% of the players in the Bundesliga are Germans. Yes. Whereas only 34% of the players in the Premier League are English.
Well, they've got a rule, haven't they? They've got a rule.
They have got a rule.
But also, don't you believe me when I was saying earlier to Toby there that the Bundesliga romance that everybody has is a bit misguided, to be honest, because a lot of the teams in the Bundesliga below, say, third place, they're all rubbish.
Well, they don't get good crowds. They don't get good players. Yeah. I think it's true to say that the core of the German team comes from three clubs. You're absolutely right. Yeah. But do you mind me saying this studio's in a bit of a state. There's filthy coffee cups all over the place here where I'm sitting. I mean,
I'm sorry, it's nothing to do with me.
Can you just throw this away, please?
Yeah, throw that away. I've no idea why that was there.
Could you not just clear it up a little before I come in?
I don't have time to clear it. I've got a 5-hour show to do, right? My first thought is not, I must keep this studio really clean for Porky Parry. For somebody else's mess. It's probably Goldstein and Cundy that have left it from the sports bar.
Well, no, I'm not blaming those boys. They're not here to defend themselves. Now, what do we think about the Germans tonight? What are we going to think about getting beaten? Frankly, I know this sounds odd, but it wouldn't bother me if we did get beaten. I mean, I don't want to get beaten by the Germans,
You
obviously.
don't want to be beaten badly, either.
I don't want to be badly, but what I'm saying is I would refuse to join a chorus of, oh, my God, crisis and all that if we lose to the Germans tonight, because I don't think it's that important.
No, but don't you also think that losing to Chile in a pretty bad way, to be honest, that Chilean game was appalling, right? That was the worst England performance I've seen for many a year. If you now get another loss against Germany, that'll be the two losses at the new Wembley for the first time ever, I believe, in a row. And also, it will take away completely that feel-good factor that we all had after England qualified.
Again, I've been doing a bit of research, Mike, and I like to be full of the facts before I come onto your show.
Good.
Last time
at least one of us is there.
It's a bit harsh. Last time we lost 2 games on the trot at Wembley was in 77. Right. The famous Scotland victory, do you remember?
Oh, yes. When they took the pitch away.
Took the pitch away. It was preceded, I didn't realise this, by a defeat against Wales.
Was it?
In the same week in the Home International Championship. Right. So we don't want to get into that scenario.
So that is an awfully long time ago.
But again, I've been doing some research before I came on the show, and I just wanted to point out to you...
You're not just going to keep saying that all night. I would hope that you do some research before you come on. You just wander in like some hobo off the street.
No.
With a few views that you haven't actually checked out.
Hey, Mike, come on, don't talk about hobos when you dress like you do to come to work in the early hours of the morning. Now, what I was going to say is, I've been looking at some of the warm-up games that we've undertaken before previous tournaments. For instance, in 1980 and 88, and going as recently as 2002, and we do lose a lot of games in these warm-ups. Now,
I lose a lot of games in the tournament as well.
Well, no, I'm talking about, non-competitive, like friendlies, right? But the point is, surely, this is the manager's opportunity to experiment, and therefore, he's putting the result at risk. If the manager the manager decided the result is the most important thing, he's not doing his job properly, because he'd be so safe in his selection, he wouldn't be able to see...
But that's what Roy Hodgson has always been, really, until
he'd never be able to see what the fringe players were.
This is why I saw for the first time Roy Hodgson has actually got a bit of flair and a bit of class about him, because he knew he had to win those 2 games against Poland and Montenegro, set out to do so, put Andros Townsend in, took a chance, nobody thought he was going to do that. When he did it, everyone said, this guy is actually a genius. Now, we're back to a situation where his experiment against Chile was a complete and utter unmitigated disaster. I think you'd agree.
Yeah.
And tonight is another kind of experiment. He's got another back four that's different from the previous back four. You know, is Cahill playing? Is he not playing? Nobody knows.
We don't know, no. Smalling, to me, has got a big job to do tonight to prove himself to be an international class defender, OK? Jaggy Elter, of course, is the man who will be the stalwart of the defence, but Smalling alongside him, I hope he's not going to be a weak link. Did you see that the Germans went to Wembley to train today on the London Tube?
Yeah.
How about that?
That's the best way to get to Wembley, isn't it?
Listen, what you said there is not right. Sorry, not wrong.
It's not
wrong. No, it's not wrong.
Right or wrong?
No, it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
It's quite easy to make a distinction
I
between
would
the two.
go any other. Well, actually, no. To be honest, I get the train from Marylebone Station.
Yeah.
Overline, the overground.
Does that go into Wembley Park as well?
No, goes into Wembley Stadium's
oh, really?
station.
I've never been that way.
Yeah, Wembley Stadium station. The next one up is Harefield Hospital.
Right.
So, you know, I'm quite used to that.
You're a regular visitor on that way.
Well,
the problem is leaving Wembley, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, unless
I always leave. I leave 5 minutes before the end.
Yeah,
always.
Either you do that, or you have to be in some kind of hospitality situation where
and,
you leave
and stay for an hour.
Yeah, stay for at least an hour.
I agree.
Otherwise, you're in that tunnel underneath the underneath the road.
Well, for Wembley Park you are, but if you go to the Wembley Stadium station, you're in a queue a mile long. It snakes down the hill, if you know what I mean, from the back of the stadium.
Surely they must be able to come up with a better idea of getting fans out of a stadium.
No. How can you do it? 90,000 people all in the same place at one time. How do you do it? And by the way, talking about public transport, I'm increasingly becoming of the persuasion that we should all use public transport. For instance...
I use public transport all the time.
Oh, do you?
You've spent an entire life being ferried around in cars, driving yourself to places... You know, you've got the new Merc now, which a lot of people are not happy about, given the situation tonight with Germany, you know.
Well, you know, it's one of those things. You've got to work tonight on the bus, probably. Now...
Actually, I came in a taxi.
Okay, in a taxi. Why is that, then?
Well, because at night I'm carrying a lot of expensive
transport.
equipment.
It's not public transport.
Public transport up to a point,
Nah, it's and I'm indulging yourself. And you accuse me of driving around...
You might have seen a story today about something like 750 tablets being stolen from public transport over the course of the last year. More tablet computers now being stolen on the train. So I took a decision after 10 o'clock at night. If I'm walking around,
finally getting mugged.
If I'm walking around with an iPad, I'm not going to offer it up to some guy who's going to try and steal it, am I?
Well, you just tell him to, you know, do one and stand up for yourself. But the point I was going to make is, I have even thought about travelling to these studios and back on what's called night buses. What do you think of?
That would be hilarious.
No, these buses go in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I know they do. You'd be like that one I tried to catch from Crystal Palace, you know. I mean, they take forever. I mean, you can't get a bus in from Epsom, surely.
I think you can.
Really?
Apparently these
night
buses...
have to set up about 8 o'clock at night to get here for 2.
Yeah, but I just feel that I do have an obligation to society, and I'm seriously thinking about it. And the other thing is...
I think you should do it as an experiment. No, why don't you try and take one home tonight, then?
I mean, this is... Well, because I've got a car parked outside.
Oh, so you didn't do it tonight?
No, I didn't do it tonight. But, I mean, you know, the German footballers go to Wembley on public transport. They're German. This is England. They're giving us an example. And my point is also... that life has been made so hard for the driver in London now, it's almost pointless having a car. In one particular night, Mike, recently, I nearly got flashed by a camera because another car overtook me at pace, and my car could have been through. I got done for going into a bus lane, you know, at like 3 o'clock in the morning, when it said 24-hour bus lane, by a camera.
Well, you're not supposed to go into it if it's a 24-hour bus lane.
Yeah, but it's so dark you can't see whether it's a blinking bus lane or not. And
well, if you can't see, you shouldn't be driving.
And the third thing is, the congestion charge, you never know what time the congestion charge...
Which is about 12 quid now, isn't it?
It's 10 quid if you pay it in the day and 12 quid another day.
Well, you know exactly what time it starts. It starts at 7 in the morning and finishes at 7 at night.
But if you don't pay the congestion charge on the day or the day after, then they send you a bill for 130 quid.
Everybody knows that.
It's a disgrace.
Why don't you know it?
Well, I just keep forgetting about it, you know. But I'll have to do something about that.
Time of your life, you start forgetting about this stuff. Why don't you make a promise to come in on the bus then on Thursday night, next Thursday when you come in?
Well, look, I'll investigate the ecological benefits
That's a no
of it.
then, isn't it?
No, it's not a no. It's not a no. It's not a no. I mean, you know.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll research for you how you could get here from Epsom by bus. How about that? and then we'll give you a full and frank briefing on it.
I think you'll find you could probably come in by train, right? Because I think the trains are still running at the sort of time that I want to get here to start researching the show with you. And I think it would be going home on a night bus.
Yes.
Which is the issue. But apparently you can do it. Apparently you can.
All right, well, we'll check it out for you. Funnily enough, talking about cars, we're going to be talking about motoring next with Mr. Mike Parry, who's here for a bonus 15 minutes this evening as well, because somehow he's managed to finagle that out of the people that bosses here at Talk Sport. But we're going to talk hands-free phones in cars, coming up next with Mike Parry. This is Talk Sports Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. I'm sitting here with Mr. Mike Porky Parry. He's going to be going to that England game, presumably by public transport later on tonight, which is live, of course, right here on Talk Sport. I'm still looking for reasons to be cheerful about it and reasons to be positive about it, but we'll talk some more about that coming up in a little while. Because right now, Mike, what I want to talk to you about is driving, because, you know, we have been talking about the benefits of public transport versus the problems now with driving all around London. And you, up until recently, had a very magnificent Jaguar car, which was full of all sorts of bells and whistles. I remember it was the kind of car that when you walk past, the doors automatically open without you actually having to touch anything.
That's right.
Which I was found like a bit puzzling. But also you had all sorts of, you know, Bluetooth devices.
Well, you could shout at it. You shout at the car and ask it to dial a number. So, for instance, I'd be driving along. I want to speak to Andy Townsend. I'd just shout out, you know, Townsend, mobile.
Right.
And, you know, then everything goes off in the car except the noise of the phone working. And you get the dialing number and then you get Andy's voice.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
However, the problem is that people are now saying that it's not enough that people have stopped using handheld phones, even though you still see people driving around holding
all
their
the
phones.
time.
What they're saying now is it's actually dangerous to drive and talk on the phone at the same time, even if it's a hands-free.
Yeah, but isn't that the same thing as saying, well, you shouldn't be listening to the radio then?
Well, funnily enough, I mean, there are lots of studies that have been done which basically say that no matter what you're doing in a car, it could be very distracting. If you're smoking a cigarette, if you're changing a CD...
Yeah, you're mad to be smoking a cigarette in a car.
Well, I would be smoking a cigarette in a car.
Well, you're mad, because a mate of mine once was driving along smoking a cigarette in a car when the end of the cigarette fell off onto his crotch, burnt through his trousers, and was literally physically endangering, you know, his genitalia area.
His what?
His genitalia area. I couldn't think what to say then.
Well, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to talk about that.
Actually, I mean, the smoke is actually coming from, you know, the trouser area of his zip.
Yeah, well, I know people
and
that's happened to.
And it burnt through his trousers. Yeah. And needless to say, he got very alarmed. And considering we were on the M42 at the time, you know, in the dark, it was quite a shocking experience.
He's obviously very careless. The point is that, you know, I think there's some truth to this, but I think you have to be careful not to say that everything is a problem, because otherwise, you actually, I mean, if I was sitting next to you and talking to you, that must be as much of a distraction as talking on the phone, surely.
I agree. Of course it is. And probably more, because you turn occasionally your face to see the person you're talking to. It is a terrible distraction, I agree.
Did I tell you once about what my ex-wife did to me when we were driving in New York, actually? She had this little Dodge car, and I was having a terrible row driving down the middle of Times Square for some reason. And she took the cigarette lighter out of the ashtray to light a cigarette and plunged it into my knee as I was driving.
What, hot?
Yes.
To burn through your trousers?
To burn through my trousers and left one of those little, like, round marks.
And did it?
Yeah. Which caused me some pain.
I realise your ex-wife was a slightly eccentric woman, but that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. Could have caused a massive accident. Anyway, I'll tell you what we're going to do now. We're going to talk to an expert in this matter, a man by the name of Dr. David Strayer, and he's from Utah, funnily enough, the University of Utah, which we were talking about last weekend.
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City, exactly. And he's done a series of studies on the dangers of things that you do in the car that could actually cause a distraction. Dr. Strayer, very good morning to you.
Good morning. How you doing?
Yeah, very well. Thanks. Sorry for the rather long preamble there, but we were just trying to set the scene.
I was enjoying it.
People do an awful lot of things in the car that they shouldn't do. And, I mean, to me, I don't think there's any difference in having a passenger that you're talking to and talking on a hands-free phone. Is there a difference?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it depends on who you're asking. If you're looking for teenagers who are learning to drive, then talking to a passenger isn't very safe. But for an adult, someone in their 20s, 30s, or beyond, we find that actually having a passenger or in a passenger conversation is actually protective you're less likely to be involved in a crash. The driver might be a little distracted, but you have a second set of eyes that helps out.
Well, you've obviously never driven a car with my colleague here, Mr. Parry, because I've driven with him, and he talks on the phone, and he does all sorts of things at the same time. Sometimes, much to my alarm. I mean, you've done studies on this, so presumably you're of a mind to say that hands-free talking really should be outlawed. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's no difference in terms of the crash risk for handheld versus hands-free.
Really?
The mind's distracted in both cases, and just simply whether you're holding one hand on the steering wheel or two doesn't really add much safety. So whether or not you want to outlaw it, it's certainly an activity that is unsafe, and you don't certainly want the person who's driving behind you distracted like that, I imagine.
Doc, the biggest example to back up what you're saying for me is the number of times I've missed a turning off a motorway. I've missed the junction altogether because I've been talking on the phone animatedly, and when I come off the phone, I haven't even realised I've missed my turn off, and I'm shocked to find that the next number that comes up for the next junction is the one beyond I should have turned off. Now, if I can be that distracted that I actually lose sense of the route which I'm taking, clearly, if something had happened which needed some sort of corrective action in the car, I may also have been that distracted.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're right. I mean, that's exactly the biggest problem, is that you're not paying attention to kind of the critical things that you need to pay attention to. If a pedestrian walks out, if another car stops in front of you, or you come to your exit and you just don't notice it. Those are all the kinds of things that are the most signature characteristics of someone who's talking on a cell phone. They just aren't responsive when they need to be.
And what about sat-navs? Presumably if you've got a sat-nav talking to you and you're trying to look at it and you're trying to hear it and you're trying to listen to what that's saying, I mean, that must be pretty dangerous as well, no?
Well, it depends on how you use it. I mean, not quite sure why you need to look at it while you're driving. If at least there's some of them that give you turn-by-turn directions just with the voice, and that turns out to be not a problem. In fact, a safety advantage. But if you have to stare at a map to try and figure out where you're going, you're taking your eyes off the road, and that is a recipe for disaster.
Doc, one of these days, surely, we're all, as drivers, going to be driving around with the same sort of helmet on which the modern-day fighter pilots have, aren't we? So that actually your brain is doing it for you. You know, you just think, and it happens. You know, so you know you're thinking.
Well, not in your case.
No. Do you understand what I'm saying, Doc? You know, fighter pilots now don't have to do anything except think, and then whichever part of their brain is thinking what to do, the plane responds to it. Surely that's got to come, hasn't it? Because otherwise you'd be out of touch in a car, and that is actually impractical in the modern day world we live in.
I think a different direction is where people are going. It's more the autonomous car, where you get in the car and you tell it where to go, and then you just sit back and the car drives where you need to go.
Yeah,
I think what they're planning on doing. The putting a helmet on and having it read your brain, that's a much more difficult challenge.
Yeah, they haven't made a helmet like that for Mr. Parry yet, I don't think.
That's a bit harsh. Yeah, read my brain.
Yeah.
But anyway, Doc, it's fascinating what the future's going to bring us in car technology.
It is. Dr. David Strayer, thank you very much indeed for your time. He's a professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Utah. And amazingly, right, it says that one of the studies they did shows that actually talking on the phone makes you as impaired as being drunk at the legal blood alcohol level. So it's actually like being a drunk driver, which is even more reason not to do it.
Well, look, you'd never defend drunk driving in a million years.
Of course not.
But I can tell you this. If there's ever a suspicion that I'm on the cusp, what did I have, 1 pint, the concentration factor I put into driving then is extreme. I wouldn't dream of using the phone or anything else. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas when you're on the phone, you are so unaware of anything else happening. I mean, honestly, the example I gave about missing junctions, I do it all the time when I'm on the phone. Yeah. You know, you suddenly, and you think to yourself, crikey, if you can be that distracted, what would have happened if the lorry in front of you had suddenly braked very hard or something?
Yeah, you'd have banged into the back of it.
Probably, yeah.
I'm amazed you don't have broadcast. Now, what about this idea that you've got about planes having the guys that put this helmet on and they just think?
Well, it's bound to come.
I've seen that in a movie.
No, it's bound. No,
this is what they do now.
It certainly is.
Rubbish.
It certainly is, mate. The Top Guns now at Mirabar, was it? Is it Mirabar? Mirabel?
Mirabel, isn't that skiing resort?
No, Top Gun, right? The guy says, "Okay, you guys, I'm giving you your lucky chance." Yeah, I know, but
it's a movie.
It's a real place. Is it called Miramar?
No.
Miramar? But anyway,
it's Miramar.
It's you know what I'm talking about. Tom Cruise, you know. You take my breath away.
Yeah, it's a very old film. And
Yeah,
I
know.
They certainly did not have helmets that they could
right,
control
but
the plane with.
What I'm saying is, of course they didn't in those days, but in the modern day Miramar, we'll call it, okay, the pilots there, they just put this helmet on, they just think, and there are sensors on their head, in their brain, and the plane responds to what they're thinking about.
So what if you start driving, you start thinking about Everton, does it start taking you there?
No, it doesn't start taking you there, but...
Well, how do you control your mind waves, then?
Well, because what I'm saying is, you could actually... I imagine one of these days, your brain will be able to filter out noises into a special device like this, which, no, seriously, which turns into a voice. Because you know as well as I do that voice recognition now is one of the major technological
it's really advanced. You shout Townsend, and it rings Andy Townsend. It's fantastic space-age technology.
No, but I mean, that actually does happen. So what I'm saying is, it's not just that. Voice recognition.
Think Townsend and it will call him.
In our profession, right, where we sometimes have to translate the spoken word into the written word, you know full well you can get machines these days, you just talk to them and they just reel it out on paper, right?
Yeah, but you don't want it driving your car, do you?
Of course you don't want it driving your car, but I'm saying is that the same sort of process applied in a different way could be just as productive to turn thinking into speech.
Yes. Well, we'll have some more from Mr. Mike Porky Parry's box of theories coming up next on TalkSport.
Crazy. But that's how it goes. Millions of people living as hobos.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. I'm delighted to say that I'm in the company of Mr. Mike Parry, whose ideas haven't got any more sane since the last time we spoke.
You've got no imagination, Mike, about the future, believe me.
I've got lots of imagination about the future.
No, you haven't.
But we don't want to dwell on the hands-free phone thing, but I want to hear from people out there, though, as well, because I've got a tweet here from somebody called London Nev, who says if either Cameron or Miliband propose banning hand-free mobiles, they will lose the next election. Well, give us a call on that, 08717 223344. I want to talk to you about something that you had a go at me out over the weekend.
Yes.
Because I was telling the boys on the sports bar that I had a great weekend. Went to the Museum of London on Sunday, and on Saturday decided to take my kids up the Monument, which is that fantastic pillar which is just on the other side of London Bridge, on the north side of London Bridge.
I didn't know you could walk up that until you told me.
Well, first of all, you didn't know I could walk up it. Then you said that I wouldn't be able to walk up it.
331 steps.
311 steps.
311 steps.
It's a spiral inside. It's actually the tallest, I think it's the tallest standing pillar in the world. And they put a mesh around the top of it as well when you get up there.
So you can't throw yourself off?
In the mid-19th century, apparently, people started throwing themselves off it. Yes. I mean, I was quite out of puff by the time I got up the top of it, but I was surprised,
I'm
actually.
amazed you got up there, honestly, Mike.
I must say, I was slightly concerned. My kids are both quite young. I thought they might struggle, and I thought, but the first time I asked my youngest son, where are we now, on the way up, he said we're at 220. So that was the first point at which I actually thought I'll have to think about...
I'm surprised you did it. I've got, in my, on my place down on the coast, right, I have to walk up 9 flights of stairs, sorry, to get to my apartment,
You didn't
right?
walk up any stairs when you took me there.
No, I put you in the lift because I didn't think you'd make it up the stairs.
Well, you went in the lift as well.
Yes, I know, but when I'm on my own, I normally go up the stairs.
It,
yeah, I go up the stairs because it, keeps my heart pumping, which is well,
I bet you couldn't walk. I bet you could not walk up the Monument.
Well, of course I could, because what I'm saying is each flight of 9 flights has got 9 steps, so that's 81 steps.
Yeah.
I can skip up there in like a minute. You know what I mean? It's like I'm like ballet dancing up there.
You can multiply by 3, and you still won't reach the top of the Monument.
Multiply by 4, and you would, and I could do that easy. So that's not a problem. Anyway, the rest of the weekend you spent investigating the Fire of London. I did try to give your children a history lesson on what the Fire of London was all about, but you didn't pass it on to them, did you?
Well, no, I didn't, because one of the reasons why I didn't was because you said it was some kind of German spy, or Dutch spy, or something,
Dutch spy,
which I think you must have confused again with some movie that you must have seen.
No.
Because I went to the Museum of London, which is in the Barbican. It's been there since about the mid-70s, I think, when they put it. I've got a huge exhibition about the Fire of London, how it started, how it spread, how long it took to go out, and all the rest of it. And not once in any piece of literature that they have in the museum, which has got every single fact that you would need to know, does it mention it was started by a spy.
The popular theory since we were still fighting the Second Dutch-Anglo War, right? And the problem was that Dutch was the absolute master nation of the seas in the world.
Yeah.
And we're talking here 1666, okay? So that's 100 years after King Henry VIII. Yes, well done, Mike. You worked that one out. After King Henry VIII disillusioned us from Rome, So we
disillusioned us.
Yes, disillusioned us. Yes, disillusioned us, and we were very worried.
Disillusioned of the monasteries, really. It wasn't so much us, was it?
Well, it was as a nation. As a nation, we were separated then from Catholic Rome and all that kind of Catholic Europe actually, because France was Catholic. We were worried that there were Catholic spies all over the place. Yeah. Including Dutch. Now, there's a popular theory that actually a Dutch spy was landed in a boat near Rye and made his way up to London and went around...
Become a night bus.
On a night bus. Can you take this seriously, please? And went around setting fire to a few buildings to destroy London.
Why is none of this in any way put into a story of how the fire could have started?
Well, perhaps they just want to make it simplistic and say it started in a bakery in Pudding Lane.
Well, that's exactly where it started.
Well, yes, it did, but somebody set fire to the bakery, and the theory is it was a Dutch spy.
Well, I've never heard this theory before,
the Dutch...
or has it been widely circulated
King
anyway? Henry
VIII was the father of the Royal Navy. We've gone over that before, OK? Now, England are becoming a mighty sea power, and they're going to expand into an empire. The Dutch didn't want that. The Dutch, East Indies, Dutch West Indies, they had all the power around the world. They wanted to get rid of Britain, so they thought the best thing to do is go and set fire to London. And that's a popular theory. That is a popular theory, Mike.
Propagated by who?
It's a popular theory. No, I am a student of history, and historians have actually examined the idea that the fire of London was a dastardly Dutch plot to...
Well, why is there no mention of it in the Museum of London?
Well, I don't know. Perhaps it's a very poor exhibition.
It's not. It's a brilliant exhibition.
Well, how do you know it's brilliant?
Because
You're not an historian, so all you can say is, did they have some little model houses and all this kind of stuff? Yeah, well, that looks pretty and all that, but the true historical fact is that could have been an act of espionage and malice against this country, which you don't seem to want to recognise.
In these things, right? Do you know what, for example, the buckets that the fire brigade in those days used were made of?
The buckets in those days were made of pigs' bladders.
They were made of leather.
Well, yeah, but where do you get leather from? Pigs. well, cattle, you know what I mean?
That is the most ridiculous thing you've ever said, amongst the many things that you've said. You do not get leather from pigs.
But you get pigskin. You get pigskin from pigs, if you see what I mean.
Well, the buckets were made of letter, not pigs' bladders.
Well, they could have been made of pigskin. There were more pigs around than cows in those days.
Not after the fire.
Not after the fire, a lot of roast pigs. So,
thank you for your note on history on that one.
Yeah.
Now, I've got another question to put to you, because by mistake, you phoned me on Sunday night. Now, normally when you ring me, I'm absolutely straight to the phone, obviously. But I'd already spoken to you about 8 times that day, so I decided I'm not going to answer this call.
Okay.
I listened to the message that you left me, right? And I'm going to put this to you and ask you, what on earth do you think you were doing while you made this phone call?
4 saved messages. Yesterday, 6:49 p.m.
Well, that's clearly...
It's like you're walking through a swamp.
Well, no.
There's like a watery sound.
No, I tell you what I think that is. You see, obviously that phone's gone off by mistake. That's obvious. You've done it to me before now.
Maybe you shouted my name and it told me.
That sounds to me like I'm turning over the pages of a newspaper. Because on Sunday evenings, I sit at home and...
No, it's watery. It sounds like water. There's water.
It's funny. It's a bit of a funny noise, though. I'm not sure.
It sounds like like you're walking through, either wading through a river, or you're dragging something.
I wasn't wading through any rivers on Sunday night.
You weren't feeding the ducks on Sunday night.
No, I wasn't. No, and I wasn't, sort of jumping up and down in the bath or anything like that. I can only assume that was some sort of echo, made by the airwaves or the phone or something like that.
It was a very odd message to leave me.
Yeah, but before now, mate, you've rung me, and all of a sudden you get this empty, vacuous noise, which actually...
That's me talking.
I was about to say, which is actually sometimes what I expect of you, but it happens to us all. In fact, I tell you what, Michael Vaughan, the former England captain, right, I discovered once I'd rung him for about 20 minutes. I looked at the phone next day, I thought, golly, that's absolutely amazing, and you're worried that people are going to think you're a bit of a stalker or something. Yeah. So I actually rang Michael, and I said, Michael, he said, don't worry, it happens to me all the time. It happens to everybody, doesn't it? You knock your phone in your
before
pocket.
The days when you could actually lock phones, which I now do all the time, many, many years ago, I used to have this guy that worked for me in Scotland called Aaron. And his first name was, of course, Aaron. And so he was the first person in my address book. And apparently every weekend, I used to ring him about 5 times because it was the first number that my phone would ring whenever it would press against something in my pocket.
It happens to me all the time. I don't put the lock on, by the way, because when you put the lock on, the screen goes off and you can't see anything on your phone. So
you can't see it when it's not on anyway.
No, but well, yes, you can. You can see the time on it and all that kind of stuff. You know,
you just have it permanently lit up.
Well, I find the lock a bit of a nuisance.
Well, I'd prefer it if you didn't ring me when you don't want to talk to me. Is all I'm saying.
I don't even like ringing you, and I have to speak to you, Mike. So
well,
I can assure you, I won't be ringing you unnecessarily.
Well, now, let's talk about something else that I think you may have got wrong, because you told me earlier on today that it's a full moon tonight and you'd be on your lookout for all sorts of weird happenings. But I've had a note from somebody who said actually the full moon was last Saturday.
No. I've got an absolutely spot-on astrologist, name of Jane.
Oh, yeah.
She communicates with us through Twitter, okay?
I thought you were going to say from the other side.
No. And she has told me that tonight, round about 2:40, was the fullest moon you can imagine.
Really?
Okay. Now,
did you see it when you were out driving then?
No, because I got here a long time before 2:40, and in Talksport Towers we don't have a lot of windows.
Well, it doesn't suddenly just pop out of the sky as a full moon. I mean, it looks full for a couple of days beforehand.
Yes, but Mike, have you seen me near a window baying at the moon or anything like that? No, of course not. So all this nonsense about people going, emotional when there's a full moon in the sky.
It does happen. I mean,
it can happen.
We used to get some very odd calls on this show when there was a full moon, and people would start acting in a very odd way.
My Auntie Doreen, no joke, God rest her soul, she did get affected by full moons. I remember we had a New Year's Eve party around at our house once, on those occasions when my father used to appear at the door with a bit of cold.
Oh, yeah, the first footing scenario,
all that kind of stuff, And we remember distinctly once she climbed up on a chair and she was wailing at the sky because apparently it was a full moon that night. And I don't think
that's where the word lunatic comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, lunar.
Because it's from the verb lunar.
Yeah,
which is not a verb, actually.
No, I was about to say the verb lunar, to moon.
Yeah. Well, that's something else, which hopefully we're not going to have to discuss.
I don't think that came from it. No. Lunar is the moon's surface, as you quite rightly say. But I mean, people say that, it's all a myth and all that, but the moon does have distinct properties on Earth.
Yeah.
I.e.
Well, the river's
tides.
Always much higher. The river down where I am, because it's down in that tidal part of the Thames, is always much, much higher and much, much lower. In fact, the boat that goes across the Canary Wharf can't run because when there's a full moon, it goes to such a low tide that they can't get across. Yeah.
Is that right?
So you'd be stranded in Canary Wharf without a Brazil.
That's fascinating. I think I told you once, sometimes I go down on the coast, I go walking as well, along the Solent and all that. Now, if I cut in a little bit from the Solent to a village called Ulverstow, it's got a beautiful church with a beautiful town and all that kind of stuff, I can sort of cut through the village and go on to a place called Leon Solent. When, I think it was the day of a full moon, the tide came sweeping in across the village and cut off the road. And I was wading through this road with 2 feet of water, and all the houses on either side all had flood defences.
Yeah.
And it happens, often. Well, not often, but it happens on occasions when the full moon and the tides, sort of come together and all that kind of stuff. So
our research department is saying that the biggest full moon of recent times was on Sunday night. It was Sunday the 17th of November.
Well, it's not my information. I'm sorry, and I've got very good information on moons.
Well, it depends where you are in the world as well, doesn't it? Because it's not a full moon in every same part of the world.
Well, that could be the point. Actually, I do remember on Sunday night, it was a bit of a mystic moment. I was looking out the window of the old penthouse, and I did see the clouds suddenly shift, and this was late at night, and this beautifully beaming moon was there, but I don't think it was absolutely full. I think there's a full moon and a complete full moon. I think the complete is tonight.
Well, there's a blue moon as well, which can be very, very bright. Or a super moon, of course. I don't do any more singing.
No.
Let's finish up with some more football, though, because we want to talk about Ronaldo and Ibrahimovic, and also, of course, France, who might not be going to the World Cup if that goes well, as we would expect it to tonight against the Ukraine.
No, it's true. Martin Samuel wrote a great piece in the Daily Mail. He is a great writer and all that. And he's pointing out, this was today, and he's pointing out that, when Mr. Platini wants to expand the number of clubs in the World Cup and all that kind of stuff, that's all very well. But if you don't revise the qualification process, it means you could go without France, but Panama will qualify for the World Cup.
Crazy,
and I've been going on about this for years.
Yeah.
I've been going on about it for years. Why should you say, well, you've got to spread the division of countries in the World Cup around the world, when, for instance, apparently New Zealand could be playing somebody like is it the old Hebridean Islands or something down in the South Pacific? Or,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's something like that for a place in the World Cup. When in fact,
they're playing Mexico at the moment, aren't they?
Are they? Yeah. When in fact, clubs like, countries like, now, Poland are 1-0 up against Sweden, okay?
Portugal.
Portugal, sorry.
Yeah.
Portugal are 1-0 up
Poland
against Sweden. Poland are out, you're absolutely right. Portugal are 1-0 up against Sweden. France are 2-0 down to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Now, Ukraine and Sweden are better clubs than Caledonia. Old Caledonia it's called, so I just found it down
they're
there.
not going either.
No, but next time they could, because if you expand these tournaments, to 40 and all this kind of stuff, because it'll start.
So, somebody also once said, if you call something the World Cup, does it not mean that it should have representation from the world rather than just representation from all the best sort of European teams, South American teams?
No, it should be the world's best teams. It shouldn't be called, it's called the World Cup because you want to find out the best country in the world.
Right.
But that does not include allowing, dopey, with the greatest respect, poor football nations into a major competition, because that means that other countries just get walkovers in these mismatched games.
Yeah, well, it's a perennial problem, which I'm sure we'll be talking about for some time. We'll be talking about later on as well, whether Portugal or Sweden will get through, whether France or Ukraine will get through, and what about this England-Germany game tonight? Mr. Parry will be there, so look out for him. He'll be the man on the public transportation system.